Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. This is day 7 of the X block. We have one more day left. And I'm actually doing a road ride. I was supposed to be doing a Zwift all this entire block, but my leg is feeling better. I tested it yesterday by going out for about 100 minutes and doing a real light ride. So it was I'll call it a partial test, but it did give indications that things are going quite well. So I'm going to be doing another 90-minute ride. I'm going to be, there's some packages. I'm going to be throwing in some sprints, and this is going to again be another test. However, I'm going to be doing a Zwift Crit City crit afterwards, and so this is kind of my warm-up. Last Crit City crit I did was before my leg got injured, and I had finally worked up in the category Bs where I lasted until the last lap, and then I got dropped, going into the finish. I don't expect to be able to do that well today, but got to get started, and I'm actually looking forward to it. I was probably dawdling somewhere too long because I got everything settled and finally on the bike 10 seconds before the start. Good thing I had that warm-up. This comeback crit was tough for me, but it produced some interesting numbers. The last time I did the Crit City crit was about 6 weeks ago. I first injured my legs 4 weeks ago, and then when I tried to nurse it along and it didn't work, I finally got off the bike starting about 2 weeks ago. I was off the bike for 5 days. When I got back on, I found that I can ride on Zwift, but I couldn't ride outside without hurting myself. So until yesterday, it was all Zwift all the time. We had 52 starters in this race, and already 2/10 of a mile into the race, I'm at number 47 with a gap in front of me. Even though I was already in hypoxia, I was thinking, man, I don't want to be off the back by myself. I figure the best I can do right now is push the gear that I'm pushing as long as I can and hope that I attach onto a functional group. And I'm also hoping that should I get up to that group pulls me up to the rest of them. As often in these situations, I am riding the fine line between aerobic and anaerobic death. In this case for me, that means that I am pushing as big a gear as I can to get the job done, and then when my legs start to bog down, I go to a smaller gear and do a lot more spinning. That takes pressure off my leg muscles and filters out the metabolite waste in the meantime. I spin for as long as I can until I start to overcook aerobically. In other words, I start to go into the red zone. Then I switch back to the bigger gear again, take the pressure off my aerobics, and put the pressure back on my muscles. This I do until either one of two things happens. One, I either survive this crunch time incident that I'm in and then I get to rest, or two, I don't survive it and I'm off the back. By the looks of it, I got myself onto a working group, but there seems to be about 34 in front of us with a 6-second lead that's growing. We're just 0.6 miles into this race, and this was already quite an effort for me. All I'm now doing is resting as much as I can, and rest is a relative word in this case. Fast forward to the start of the second lap, I found that I have survived, at least to this point. Job 1 for me is riding wheels toward the front of the pack. As the race wore on, that got harder to do, and I was barely able to do that, as now you're watching me on the roller section for the last time. Not because I'm about to get dropped, but because this is the last lap, thankfully. Picked up some riders from those that have dropped off the front, and now the front has about 26 people in it. Now, we'll never catch them. They're about half a lap ahead, so we're all just concentrating on each other. Now, if this was pre-injury Cycling Greek, I'd have a little more confidence in how I was going to finish. I would probably go back in the pack just a little bit, then at about 1 kilometer to go, or 0.6 mile to go, just under a kilometer, I would then start my run. Once I use up all my drafts, in other words, past the guy in the front and I'm now solo, I would hit the aero power-up that I had, at which time I would lay down even more watts so I can establish a gap. Now, I wouldn't be able to maintain those watts all the way to the finish because, a kilometer is a long way. The goal for me would be that gap would be sudden enough and big enough that others would not want to chase. As it usually turned out, that usually wasn't the case for everybody, but it was the case for some of them. However, be that as it was, I am now post-injury, first race back Cycling Greek. However, maybe I can try that move half a click from the line. Of course, the closer to the finish line I try this, the more that others are going to try this, and the more that the others are going to be able to react. And more than likely, everyone else isn't in their post-injury comeback mode. These guys are pretty strong, even in the chase group that we're in. With half a mile to go, I've got two thoughts rolling through my head. One, that I think I have one good move left, and the other, I think that the move that I have is only worth about 10 additional watts. I'm hoping that everyone else, or at least a number of the others that are in this group, are feeling as weak as I am. That 0.3 mile mark to go is coming, and I don't think I have the gas for it. So I'm starting to think, well, maybe I'll go from like 2 corners before the finish. And that's pretty much when everyone else is going to go. But that's all I have in my legs right now. A number of the strong in our group, or the ones that want to take the chance, have now started to go at 0.3 to go. And you can see things are just stretched out. They jumped out there at about 5 watts per kilogram, and I'm just hanging on to wheels at about 4 watts per kilogram. At 2 corners to go, I now hit my aero power up and then put in whatever watts that I can. And they're not a lot. I'm at about 5.5 watts per kilogram. I'm trying to hang on. Maybe I can beat this guy. Then I just run out of gas. I go down to like 1 watt per kilogram, and I just watch as this last guy beats me to the line. Okay, 36th out of 55. Let's take a look at some numbers now. What you're seeing on the screen is today's race is at the top there, where I did 3.5 watts per kilogram and 260 watts. And then the races below that are going to be my most recent races, starting with the last race, which was 6 weeks ago, which I did, and that was my best race. I did 3.8 watts per kilogram and 277 watts. So today's race was a drop of a little over 6%. What can that 6+% get me? Well, in my last race, I made it to the last lap with the front group, and I got dropped about half a lap to go. This group today seemed to be a very strong group. I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. I do love racing on Zwift, but I look forward to when I can race on the road again. Remember, comment, like, subscribe, The Cycling Greek.